Season 3, Episode 24 of The Mentalist, titled Strawberries and Cream Part 2, is not just a season finale. It's a seismic shift in the entire foundation of the show. It's the episode where Patrick Jane shoots and kills a man in cold blood in the middle of a shopping mall, a man he claims is Red John. Up to this point, The Mentalist balanced on a razor-thin line between charm and darkness. Jane, with all his quirks and cleverness, played the role of the wounded genius who swore revenge but always managed to keep a certain moral distance from violence. He manipulated people, yes. He humiliated suspects, exposed secrets, and drove criminals to confess. But he never pulled a trigger, never got blood on his hands. Until now. The moment Jane kills Timothy Carter, the man he believes to be Red John, the series changes. Not just narratively, but tonally. This isn't just a twist. It's a breaking point for the show, and more importantly, for Patrick Jane himself. And if you were watching live when this aired back in 2011, you probably remember the feeling. That stunned silence as Jane calmly sits down, picks up a cup of tea, and waits for the police to arrest him. That smile on his face, the smug satisfaction. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt wrong, or at least unsettling, because in that moment, The Mentalist stopped being just a procedural with a charismatic lead chasing a faceless killer. It became something else, something darker, heavier, and far more personal. This wasn't about solving crimes anymore. It was about what revenge does to a man. In this video, we're diving deep into that moment. Not just the scene itself, but the build-up, the aftermath, and the way it shattered the show's previous structure. This is how Patrick Jane's first kill changed The Mentalist forever. To understand the weight of what happens in the Season 3 finale, you have to look at how carefully The Mentalist built to that moment. From the pilot episode onward, Patrick Jane's vendetta against Red John is more than a subplot. It's the engine that drives his every action. Red John isn't just the man who killed his wife and daughter. He's a symbol of chaos, a monster Jane believes he unleashed by taunting him on television. Throughout the first 3 seasons, Jane dances around the idea of vengeance. He flirts with darkness, uses morally gray tactics, and often risks his team's safety to get a step closer to Red John. But despite all the close calls, the cryptic messages, the near captures, the emotionally manipulative clues, he never actually lays hands on the man himself. And Red John, in turn, seems almost omniscient. He stays a step ahead. He has moles in law enforcement. He mocks Jane through proxies, puppets, and twisted games. Then comes Season 3, which turns the heat all the way up. Jane is unraveling. He grows colder, sharper. His sense of morality begins to blur. There are fewer smiles, more dead stares. He's not just trying to catch a killer anymore. He's hunting a ghost, and it's eating him alive. By the time we reach Strawberries and Cream, Jane is fully consumed. The plot of the episode itself is complex, involving a bomb plot, a series of betrayals, and the final unmasking of Red John, or so we think. What's crucial here is Jane's state of mind. He's not solving cases for justice anymore. He's using his job to chase a demon. Every trick, every manipulation, every lie is in service of this one goal, to find and kill Red John. And then he does, or at least that's what he believes. Timothy Carter, clean-cut and polite, is revealed at the last moment. Jane lures him into a public setting, engages him in conversation, and then shoots him multiple times in front of witnesses. It's brutal. It's direct. There's no ambiguity. Jane isn't defending himself. He's executing someone. The scene is staged like a magic trick. The audience, like Jane, is led to believe the story has reached its climax. The monster is dead. The journey is over. But something doesn't feel right. Carter is too normal, too calm. He has a wife who swears he's innocent. And Red John, as we know him, would never go out like that. But in that moment, Jane believes. He believes it so much that he smiles. He sips tea, he gets arrested. And for a second, the world seems still. What makes this moment so compelling isn't just that Jane pulls the trigger. It's that everything we've seen from him led to this moment. When Timothy Carter is introduced in the final minutes of the episode, he's not some grotesque villain or ominous presence. He looks like a regular man, well-dressed, calm, married, the kind of guy you'd never suspect, which is exactly what makes him so eerie. Why did Jane believe him? Because the evidence lined up. Carter had knowledge no ordinary man should have. He referenced specific things Jane had said in confidence. He spoke in riddles, carried himself with eerie control, and smiled with the same creepy calm that defined Red John's aura in earlier episodes. It all fit. And perhaps more importantly, Jane needed it to fit. This wasn't just about facts. It was about exhaustion, about needing closure. Jane had spent years being tormented, manipulated, and haunted by this invisible man. He'd lost his family, he'd lost parts of himself. If Carter was Red John, then the nightmare could finally end. Carter's wife insists her husband is innocent, that he's just an ordinary man. But Jane doesn't even flinch. The tragedy is, Jane might have been wrong. In fact, later seasons confirm that he was. Carter was working with Red John. He was a pawn, a decoy. A convincing one, yes, but not the real thing. And that realization will shatter Jane all over again. But in this moment, Jane doesn't know that. He believes Carter is Red John, and that belief justifies the act. To him, it's justice. It's finally balance. And that belief allows him to do something that completely redefines who Patrick Jane is as a character. Before this, Jane was always the clever trickster, a man who would trap you with your own words, not a gun. But with Timothy Carter, the game is over. The tricks are done. Jane drops the mask. And all that's left is a broken man who pulls the trigger, not for justice, but for peace. Only it won't last. Because the truth about Timothy Carter is more complicated and far more devastating than Patrick Jane is ready to face. The final moments of this episode are some of the most iconic in the entire series. After 3 seasons of build-up, clues, near misses, and trauma, Patrick Jane finally finds himself face to face with the man he believes is Red John. And what does he do? He doesn't call for backup. He doesn't try to arrest him. He shoots him at point-blank range in a crowded shopping mall. It's not an action scene. There's no yelling or struggle. The tension is thick, but it's quiet. Jane sits across from Carter at a cafe table. They exchange words. Jane confirms what he thinks he already knows. And then, in a matter-of-fact motion, he pulls a small revolver from his jacket and fires. No warning, no hesitation. And what follows is arguably even more chilling. Jane calmly stands up, walks over to a nearby counter, picks up a cup of tea, and takes a seat. He sips it, sets it down, and waits. No panic, no remorse, just a man who believes he's finally done the thing he swore he would do. It's the kind of scene that sticks with you because it subverts everything we've come to expect from the protagonist. Patrick Jane was never supposed to be a killer. He was clever, manipulative, sometimes morally gray, but this was different. This was personal, cold, final. And that look on his face, smug, satisfied, eerily serene, it wasn't relief, it wasn't even joy. It was something darker, a sense of justice maybe, or closure, but it left a bad taste. For us, for Lisbon, for the entire structure of the show moving forward. Because no matter what Jane believed, Red John wasn't dead. Season 4 opens immediately after the shooting. Jane is arrested, he confesses without hesitation. To him, it was a righteous act. He believes he killed Red John, and for a few brief moments, he allows himself to feel at peace. But that peace doesn't last. And as the reality around him starts to shift, the cracks begin to show. It becomes clear almost immediately that something's off. Timothy Carter's identity doesn't line up. There's no confirmed connection to Red John beyond Jane's own certainty. And when Carter's widow tells Lisbon and the team that her husband wasn't a monster, it plants the seed of doubt. For Jane, this is where the real collapse begins. He starts pulling at threads again, going back over old clues. He doesn't celebrate. He doesn't move on. Because somewhere deep down, he knows he might have gotten it wrong. The man who was supposed to be Red John didn't leave behind the infamous smiley face, didn't taunt Jane with a final word, didn't fit the twisted profile Jane had built in his mind. All those years of pursuit, all that trauma, and this is how it ends? With a quiet man, a normal face, and a clean death? It eats at him. And in true Jane fashion, he doesn't spiral in a loud, dramatic way. He withdraws, becomes even more obsessed, keeps digging. Season 4 becomes the slow unraveling of a man who did the thing he thought would save him, only to realize he's still trapped. This shift affects everything. Jane's dynamic with Lisbon becomes strained, his relationship with the team grows colder, he stops pretending to care about most cases. It's all noise to him now, just obstacles between him and the truth. Because if Red John is still alive, that means Jane is still a puppet, still a victim, still at war. Season 4 doesn't offer the emotional relief that most shows would give after a climactic moment like that. Instead, it drags you deeper into Jane's psyche, into the guilt, the confusion, and the terrifying idea that maybe vengeance wasn't what he needed after all. Maybe it was just another illusion, another trick. And that's what makes this aftermath so powerful. The Mentalist doesn't let Jane off the hook. It forces him and us to sit in that uncertainty, in that moral murk. Jane pulled the trigger. He did what he promised. But he's not free. He's fractured. And from this point on, nothing in the show will feel quite the same again. The biggest gut punch doesn't come in Season 3's finale. It comes after, when we realize Timothy Carter wasn't Red John. There's no big reveal scene, no immediate confirmation, just subtle clues. The absence of the smiley face, the lack of Red John's signature theatrics. And Carter's background? Too clean, too ordinary. Eventually, the truth becomes undeniable. Jane didn't kill Red John. He killed one of Red John's puppets, and Red John let it happen. That's the most terrifying part. Red John wanted Jane to pull that trigger. He manipulated the situation so perfectly, so cruelly, that Jane not only killed an innocent man, he also thought he'd won. It was a trap, psychological warfare, and it worked. This twist redefined Red John's role in the show. He wasn't just a serial killer anymore, he was an omnipresent force, capable of controlling people, law enforcement, even Jane's sense of reality. And if Jane had gone that far for nothing, what wouldn't he do next? The twist wasn't just shocking, it was devastating. And it made one thing clear: the game was far from over.